Education of the previous decades emphasized on reading, writing, arithmetic skills, together with simple social studies. The subjects were conducted in a repetitive, teacher-centric approach, requiring students to memorize and regurgitate large amounts of information, judging their progress in learning solely based on tests that examine their retention of information. As technology progresses and getting more and more advanced, this method of learning is deemed outdated and may not be too relevant in our current era, where the internet has made knowledge from all across the world easily available for learners. Never before in the history of mankind, knowledge can be as easily attainable as our current timeline just via devices within the reach of our fingertips. As connection speeds increase and the ubiquity of the internet pervades, digital content proves dominant. Free education has never been so accessible, and thus, students are spoiled with choices of available online learning opportunities. Online learning involves the offering of courses and learning materials through the internet via virtual institutions. These institutions uphold the noble and upright aim of equipping students with the knowledge that they can or cannot find from these traditional brick and mortar institutions. As observed in the context of Malaysian schools, both private and governmental, online education as it exists today is purely supplemental to primary traditional education and does not replace the latter completely. Teachers still function as a core role in educating learners, but they must be aware of the growing relevance of online learning and therefore be adept in ways of utilizing online learning platforms to complement their syllabuses. Google is frequently used as it has revolutionized access to data by making the information seeking process much more convenient. It has revolutionized the way people conduct research and assimilate data, and this defines a framework change in how education is approached by an entirely new, technologically savvy generation. Before Google, a student will search for information in the library or consult their mentors. Nowadays, Google became the primary source of data for students. Studies have shown that students can remember the complex concepts much better when they are exposed to a visual explanation video. This is when the significant role of YouTube videos in education comes into place. One of the main advantages of YouTube is that it is a free web-based service that contains short contents about specific concepts taught in schools. Educators can easily search and review videos related to a specific concept or knowledge, and then provide the students with the link. It is found that using YouTube videos encourages students to look for similar videos and develop a habit of using YouTube as an educational resource to educate themselves. The only challenge is the evaluation of the reliability of the content. For that reason, content selection has to be done by the instructor. However, YouTube still justifies itself as an effective tool to enhance students' learning and engagement. Some recommended YouTube channels in the genre of education include TEDED, Minute Earth, Geography Now, Lang Focus, Wendover Productions, History Matters, and Name Explain. Aside from that, video calls and messages via the internet enable distance learning to occur. People are able to exchange information via live streaming, and thus, discussions can be done at any moment at any location. During a history lesson I taught about Egypt, a video call was conducted with my friend from Egypt with the approval of the head teacher. With the aid of technology, students are able to do things that a traditional textbook cannot do, such as interacting and communicating with real descendants of the ethnic groups that they have studied halfway across the globe. This exposure allows development of the students' global perspectives, which will be useful for them as they grow up in an ever-globalizing world. Through video calls and messaging, students are also able to communicate with their peers or teachers when they are not at school. This allows more frequent, meaningful interactions between students and teachers. Another online learning platform is an e-portfolio done by each individual student. An e-portfolio is a collection of electronic evidence assembled and managed by a user online via blogs or website making applications such as Wix and WordPress. Such electronic evidence may include text, electronic files, images, multimedia, blog entries, and hyperlinks. Assignments can be submitted in this manner. A well-executed e-portfolio program is an incredible tool for education as they provide institutions with authentic assessments of students' learning. Students generally use e-portfolios to collect their work, reflect upon strengths and weaknesses, and strive to improve. Teachers assess the work in portfolios, reflect upon it in curricular contexts, and use the data and reflections to plan for improvement. Reflection on work saved in e-portfolios can help the learners build personal and academic identities as they complete complex projects and reflect on their capabilities and progress. The world can be a rather volatile place, and unexpected events such as major disease outbreaks can potentially revolutionize the future of the education industry. Recently, the world is paying close attention to the outbreak of novel coronavirus, COVID-19. People fear contracting the highly spreadable virus and thus prefer to stay indoors, away from places with higher population densities. Classrooms where students gather together have the potential to become risky disease-spreading environments and might pose a health hazard to both students and teachers alike. Hence, online learning where teachers and students are segregated from one another physically became a more preferable choice. Some parents have signed online classes for their children so that the students forced to remain at home can keep up with their peers. Although this is a temporary measure, it could potentially make online learning acceptable to parents who may have been against online education, thus promoting the unstoppable growth of online education. As observed from the utilization of online learning platforms, which requires a lot of self-discipline and initiative to improve oneself, it fits the humanistic school of thought. Online learning platforms fit the main components of the humanistic approach as it is student-centered, not teacher-centered. Furthermore, it allows students for social personal development despite being physically segregated. It takes pressure away from the students as it is not performance-oriented. Also, it values growth and the process of discovery or exploration through learning instead of judging learners based on the ultimate final test or accomplishment. In my opinion, in the context of online learning, students that lack the inner motivation to push themselves greater or lacking skills of being independent learners will become marginalized as a behaviorist classroom where the teacher has absolute control over their learning environment will be more suitable for them instead of a liberal humanistic one. To justify this, a weak student will be driven to work harder and do better academically in a behaviorist classroom, thus making them achieve certain goals, equipping themselves with the required skill sets. They will be lost and confused if they are required to do distance learning without spoon-feeding. There is no doubt about marginalized learners and their access to the online learning platforms, since most of them possess a smartphone or computer. However, they have yet to equip themselves with the skills of independent self-driven learning as they do not master certain prerequisite skills required for distance learning to work on them. These skills include fundamental research skills, discipline, and diligence. They need to know how to learn as a basic start. They need to learn how to learn. Learn how to learn. The behaviorist approach is not relevant in online learning as its pedagogy lacks program systematic instructions strengthened with abundant drills where the behavior of learners during the learning process are closely conditioned, monitored, and observed. Online learning marginalizes weak, immature students that lack critical thinking and problem-solving skills due to the mentioned factors. In my opinion, a traditional classroom tutelage is still required for them. If online learning methodologies are compulsory, this will be an issue as we as tutors need to address to ensure that no student is left behind.